Hey, podcast listeners. Tired of ads barging into your favorite news podcast? Good news. With Amazon Music, you have access to the largest catalog of ad-free top podcasts included with your Prime membership. Stay up to date on everything newsworthy by downloading the Amazon Music app for free or go to amazon.com/ad-free news. That's amazon.com/ad-free news to catch up on the latest episodes without the ads.
Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds. At Mint Mobile, we like to do the opposite of what Big Wireless does. They charge you a lot, we charge you a little. So naturally, when they announced they'd be raising their prices due to inflation, we decided to deflate our prices due to not hating you. That's right. We're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/save.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
For better or worse, everyone is capable of change. There are countless villains in cinema that we have all thought were irredeemable, but then surprised us. Severus Snape in Harry Potter, Kylo Ren in Star Wars, and even the infamous Christmas thief himself, the Grinch, just to name a few. But then there are those with so much hope and promise that turn down such a dark path so abruptly that you wonder if there was ever light inside their soul to begin with. I know that was dramatic, but dramatic is the best term to describe the seemingly sudden turn of JD Vance from an anti-MAGA man of the people from a humble background to the poster child of the new American hyper-right wing and best friend to our flowering system of oligarchy. In this episode, we'll dive into the drastic change in JD's personal belief system, the timeline of and reasons behind the change, and finally, whether or not we as Americans simply have a different definition of morality. That said, pop a stress gummy if you need it, because your blood pressure may begin to boil as we discuss one of the biggest right-wing sellouts in United States politics. Tonight on I Do Not Trust This Person, Season 3, The Ballad of JD Vance, the Weird. Well, hello and welcome back to another episode of I Do Not Trust This Person. I'm your host, Tim Philippi, and this is Alanah, who has a question for me, right, regarding today's episode?
Oh, yeah. I thought we would kick off with a fun one. Usually you ask me a question, but today I thought I would ask you a question. So tell me if you've ever done a complete 180 on something.
Yes, that would be everything I've ever believed, basically, especially when it comes to like gay rights, trans rights, fiscal conservatism, everything of that sort. A long time ago, when my flip about, if you will, it's a better term than flip flop. Flip about. A flip flop is fun, something you wear to the beach. But yeah, I don't like the fact that George Bush got to own that. But I went to a Baptist church primarily. I definitely only went to a Baptist church for like the latter half of my church going days. And my pastor, who claimed to be a religious advisor to George Bush, had multiple sermons about.
This was in Texas, right?
This was in Texas, yeah, and DFW. He could have been. I mean, he maybe was on a council. Who the hell knows? I don't care. But he was your classic hellfire and brimstone pastor, and the church I went to, he would give sermons, at least 2 to 3 that I remember very vividly, about how we as Christians need to vote for George Bush and how Christians have to vote for Republicans, to the point where I feel like the IRS should have been investigating these people. But there was that, so that wasn't great. I was like, well, that's stupid. Not to mention, like, I don't necessarily think I like Republicans, even though I was a Christian. I still don't like either side. I consider myself one of those independent people, but I'm just, well, you can't call yourself a communist all the time because then people look at you funny. So, but I just say socialist because it's more socially acceptable. Thanks, Bernie Sanders. But then the next one was regarding, homosexuality. And like I think I've mentioned on here before that, my church kind of, and other churches had said that, when you're talking to a gay person, you're talking to someone who's possessed by a demon. They just don't know it. And it's an insane thing. And I'm not saying all Christians believe that. That's definitely not the case. And I'm just calling out the reason I decided to leave. I had know plenty of Christians specifically in this situation who would say that not all Christians believe those things, and that's not a universal thing, especially because because Jesus didn't talk about homosexuality. But I had, I left, I went to college and then I met, gay people and trans people and just people that thought differently than me. So I started to, question some things, and things started to not add up about, my faith. And I went to my pastor one day after I had met a friend who was gay, but also a very devout Christian who, like we could have conversations about the Bible and stuff like that. Like he was like, a Christian. And I was like, well, how, like he said, like, God loves me just as I am. And, Jesus never talked about homosexuality, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, well, that makes sense. So I went and talked to my Baptist pastor who goes, yeah, so let's dig into this. So being gay is a sin, right? I'm like, well, it says it in the Bible that it is. I don't necessarily at this point want to call it out as that. And he's like, oh yeah, but my friend is gay, but has abundant faith in Jesus, like as much as anybody else I know. So what makes him any different other than he's gay? Is like, well, he's living a life of sin. I'm like, because Christians believe you choose to be this way. I'm like, okay, but say you do choose this. So by your definition, because he is choosing to continuously live this life of sin, and by our definition of being saved in Jesus, he's going to hell because his salvation isn't genuine, because he's continually to live in sin by, again, the Baptist definition. And I'm like, so my friend who is a Christian, devout follower of Jesus is going to hell because you think he is just continuing to choose to live this quote unquote life of sin. Yes, was the answer. I'm like, okay. And I never went back to church ever again outside of going to, just Christmas stuff with family. Yeah.
Which is what most American Christians do.
Well, especially too, God, there's plenty of, I'll link one into the description of this episode. There is, or at least the definition. We can't do links because they don't like hyperlinks anymore in the description. Sorry, everybody, just copy and paste. But there's a videos about, how Christianity is different in the South versus the North, and like more people are way more religious down here, but that's not what we're talking about here. It's just, it's crazy how different it is down here versus everywhere else. Specifically in our subject for today's episode, the same one, the weird one, JD Vance, who did flip-flop, if you will, on a lot of things. But this is like, and here's the crux of this episode before we get into, we're going to talk about the things that he flip-flopped on, and then we're going to get into a bigger conversation about this. Listen, I'm not saying you can't change yourself or your mind. I'm like, as you just heard, I am living proof of that. I have changed my mind on lots of things when presented with new evidence. That's how you should live your life. That's it just is. But that's not the issue here. The issue isn't someone, changing their stance. It's, did they have one to begin with at all? And I don't know as if JD Vance did, because when you get to know people in college, when you get to know people and get outside your bubble, you begin to accept more people. Like there is there's like a perfect study. I don't remember what the documentary was, but it's basically introducing Klan members to people of color and getting them to talk. And then those Klan members ended up not being as racist as they were at the beginning of it, and thinking their beliefs are kind of dumb. And they are not just kind of dumb, they're fully dumb.
It makes sense when you think through it, right?
Yeah.
Like you are scared of something, or if there's the unknown, or you're told something about someone, or, a scary story, whatever. And then you go out and face that thing, and you realize, it's not that bad. It's not that hard. It's not that scary, whatever it is. Right. And so it makes sense that someone who maybe is raised very sheltered and not exposed to a lot of different things may at first be nervous about, going outside of their bubble, like you said. Yeah. But most of the time when people do, and I'm sure you're an example, and we know plenty of people, and I'm sure anyone who's listening probably has an experience like this, where you realize, that's not that scary. Maybe traveling to somewhere else, or meeting a person from a different background, or whatever. Most of the time when you expose yourself to new things, it points you away from hate and division. Yeah. It makes you more open and accepting.
Yeah.
And yet, in the case of JD Vance, the opposite happened.
It really does seem, and like, we're not speaking in any sort of like exaggerated terms here. Like, there is genuinely, like, we have the receipts, specifically his very used to be dear friend, but like,
so
we'll get to the crux of the full end of it.
Let's get into his friend, because I think this is a good time. And let's just revisit the timeline briefly. So 2016 is when Hillbilly Elegy was released.
Yes.
So probably he was writing it a couple years before.
Yeah.
But it was it around that time or more recently that his friend
reached out to him? So yeah, they had many emails, and just conversations before.
But this story, when did this come out?
This specific story came out recently.
This
came out, I believe, either in 23, the emails got leaked, or no. It would have been right as he was being, obviously this year. So yeah, it's this year, my bad. This has been a long year. So I'm thinking like JD Vance has been the nominee since like November.
Literally, he's only been in the spotlight.
This was going to be about Ted Cruz. And then I saw JD Vance close my laptop and said, we got to do something different. I'm sorry if I told that joke last time or if I just told that to Alanah in private, but it was that drastic of a turn. But yes, he meant Sophia.
Sophia Nelson.
Sophia Nelson is a transgendered friend who he met in college. They were in a group with him, his study group. That's where he met Usha as well. So he's been friends with Sophia and Usha for a long time. And then, yes, recently these emails came out because they felt that it was important to show who he was and who he is now, because he is, and I'll agree, especially like, if anything he said in Hillbilly Elegy was true about himself ever, then he is a completely different person. And my thesis of this whole thing is, does he have a moral compass to begin with? Because or did he have it paid off? Is like really what I think happened here. Like, good old fashioned capitalism changed this man's soul. I mean,
that's what it seems like, right? So, because when we look at this, it seems like he attended Yale with Sophia.
Sure.
And she mentions at one point that he even like baked her cookies or some kind of homemade treat as a recovery gift after a surgery.
Yeah, the top surgery, like, and so which is clearly, like a thing that you think he would be uncomfortable with, which he was. He was like, I don't necessarily understand all of this, but like I'm here to support you.
Being supportive. And I think that's the tone of what I get from this, because there's an email, or maybe it's a message after he attended Pride in 2015, where he says, it felt more like a frat party than I expected, but still nice to see a lot of happy people.
Exactly.
So, and he talks before going that, he says, I'm thinking of braving the crowds to people watch. So to me, when he says, to people watch, from that I take that he wasn't necessarily in 2015 like, I'm going to support the movement, or I'm going to
I just want to
I just want to go see what it's about.
Not advise. I just want to admire, or just like study it, just to see. You had to see what it's all about. Exactly. About.
So maybe more of a curiosity, or trying to understand his friend.
Yeah, exactly.
At least it shows some openness. It shows some openness to that.
Yeah, like they seemed very close. Like, I mean, he reached out to her, like you were about to mention earlier. When in his book, he reached out to Sophia and said, "Hey, Sophs, here's an excerpt from my book. I'll send this to you not just to brag, but because I'm sure if you read it, you'll notice a reference to an extremely progressive lesbian. I recognize now this may not accurately reflect how you think of yourself. For that, I am really sorry," he wrote, and she responded, or he said, "I hope you're not offended, but if you are, I'm sorry. Love you, JD." And Nelson wrote back that if you had written genderqueer radical pragmatist, nobody would know what you mean. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's absolutely true. So,
but it's sad, right? Because I think, that's so 2015, he attends Pride and seems like he's somewhat open. He's giving her, homemade baked goods to support her after she's recovering from surgery. 2016, he releases this book. He sends her an apology and they seem to be happy. And then in 2021, their friendship ended after Vance supported a bill in Arizona banning gender-affirming care. And when Sophia asked him about it, he wrote back, I recognize this is awkward, but I'll always be honest with you. I think the trans thing with kids is so unstudied that it amounts to a form of experimentation.
Yeah.
You know, unfortunately, Vance wasn't open to the conversation, and Sophia said that his position deeply saddened her, and, you know, said that the political voice you've become seems so far from the man I got to know in law school. So clearly something happened there. And I just learned something. I don't know if you knew this, but I just learned something because apparently, what day is it? That we're recording this?
We are recording this on the 15th of September.
So yesterday, the 14th of September, Sophia Nelson released a political, an opinion piece.
Yeah, this is what I'm like. We're recording these so close to the release dates now because we're like, it's so
much is happening.
Too much, yeah.
So
American politics, baby.
So she wrote an opinion piece for MSNBC, an article, and I wasn't aware of this, but he got baptized in the Catholic Church in 2019.
Oh, interesting.
Isn't that interesting?
I didn't know he was Catholic.
That's
you have to go through a lot of stuff to do that. You have to go through like what was it, communion and all that? I don't know anything about Catholics. My knowledge is lacking.
August 11th, 2019.
It's like classes. I know that much.
There's an article on the American Conservative website about this, and he's being interviewed by Rod Dreher, who Sophia in her MSNBC article identifies as the post-liberal right. Have you heard of this?
No.
Are we all okay.
We're in real time and learning about the post-liberal right. Is this how we call the alt-right now? Remember when that was a thing?
So she talks about the post-liberal right, the small but influential group. This is Handmaid's Tale shit. This is what is the name of their
Gilead?
Gilead. This is Gilead.
Sons of Jacob was the official name of their movement.
So she writes, most Americans haven't heard of the post-liberal right, the small but influential group of conservative, mostly Catholic men who have declared that liberal democracy, the animating principle of America's founding, has failed and want to bring about a new social order where there is no separation of church and state, and men and a hyper-conservative Catholicism reign supreme. So this is interesting. And this guy who interviewed and was present for JD Vance's baptism in 2019 asked him, why Catholicism? Why now? And he says, I became persuaded over time that Catholicism was true. I was raised Christian, but never had a super strong attachment to any denomination and was never baptized. When I became more interested in faith, I started out with a clean slate and looked to the church that appealed most to me intellectually. But it's too easy to intellectualize this. When I looked at the people who meant the most to me, they were Catholic. My uncle by marriage is Catholic. Rene Girard is someone I only know by reading him, and he was Catholic. I've been reading and studying about it for 3 years or even longer. It was time. It probably would have happened sooner.
Yeah, I've been studying for 3 years, so it was time. Okay, like his dad was a Protestant, like very much so. A Presbyterian, I think I had landed on, or at least had remembered. But it was saying how much his dad's faith influenced him and stuff, that he really admired that. I figured that this is, I mean, not groundbreaking. I guess groundbreaking how the right wing cult he's joined. I guess.
I guess so. He says it probably would have happened sooner if the sex abuse crisis or the newest version of it hadn't made a lot of headlines. It forced me to process the church as a divine and a human institution and what it would mean for my 2-year-old son.
Had to wait for all the pedophile stuff to cool off.
Yeah.
Like, what?
It's very, that's your fascinating.
Such a terrible reason. Like, oh my God.
Yeah, so
okay,
I think,
that explains a bit more about everything we're about to talk about.
Yeah, so I think this gives us context, right? So it's fascinating. Something happened, and it's interesting if we put this together, right? So again, we've got this Hillbilly Elegy coming out in 2016. We know that in 2017 he moves to Ohio, becomes a venture capitalist. 2019 gets baptized in Catholicism. 3 years. He says he's been researching it for 3 years. So literally,
he's been courted for 3 years
after releasing his book. and then runs for Senate in 2021. So it's an interesting timeline.
In 2019, he starts getting backed by these Catholics who are these post-liberal
right,
neo-right
Sophia calls them.
Catholics, whatever. Good Jesus, literally. Well, no, the good Jesus wants nothing to do with this. But like, oh wow. Well, yeah, okay, that tracks with everything then. I mean, especially his switch on the trans issues and his switch to, demonizing single family homes and demonizing, just gay people in general, demonizing like anybody, the single cat, single cat ladies, is that the term?
Childless
cat ladies, my apologies. Not just single childless. So yeah, I mean, he slipped on these issues of, morality, like, where in the eyes of the church, that is, like, of trans issues and homosexuality and things like that. But then there's also the racist switch too. And like, I mean, he has gone even far as at least what I looked at right before getting on here with CNN. We'll link the clip as well, but he says, actually, you know what? We're gonna put the clip right here, and a quick definition on how the Haitian migrants they're eating the dogs or eating the cats thing that you surely know about came to be. So here's JD Vance in his own words on CNN with, I believe it's Dana Bash. My apologies if it's not.
Can you affirmatively say now that that is a rumor that has no basis with evidence?
Dana, the evidence is the first-hand account of my constituents who are telling me that this happened. And by the way, I've been trying to talk about the problems in Springfield for months, and the American media ignored it. There was a congressional hearing just last week of angel moms who lost children because Kamala Harris let criminal migrants into this country who then murdered their children. The American media totally ignored this stuff until Donald Trump and I started talking about cat memes. If I have to,
but it wasn't just a meme,
create stories so that the American media actually pays attention to the suffering of the American people, then that's what I'm going to do, Dana, because you guys are completely letting Kamala Harris coast. You had one interview with her. You talk about pushing back against me, Dana. You didn't push back against the fact that she cast the deciding vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which is why a lot of Americans can't afford food and housing.
You just said that you're
talking
creating a
about
story.
Public policy.
Sir, you just said that you're creating the story.
What's that, Dana?
You just said that this is a story that you created. So the eating dogs and cats thing is not
We are
accurate.
creating, Dana, it comes from firsthand accounts from my constituents. I say that we're creating a story, meaning we're creating the American media focusing on it.
So they make their own stories.
And it was Dana Bash.
It was Dana Bash.
We did get
Thank
it right.
you. We did get it right.
So what's crazy to me about that clip, and we've spoken about Sophia Nelson, obviously JD's views on trans and gay rights and all of that has flip-flopped.
Flip-flopped, hardcore.
I don't know that I have not seen any evidence of whether I guess he's married to an Indian woman, so at some point he was open to. No,
here's the thing. Like, it's the racism isn't black and white here. I don't think.
No pun intended.
I don't think he's as racist as the next white person. I'm not going to call JD racist here in that aspect. I think he's willing to utilize the racism of his party.
Yes.
He's not just like Donald Trump, who is a racist. And again, JD is too. You can be a racist and still have a black friend or whatever you want to.
Maybe this is a different. And I don't know.
I'm not a racist. But
I may be right. I may be wrong
Exactly.
about this, but it's an interesting, different angle to think of this, where it's like, I'm not racist, but these people who are coming into my country in the way that I perceive it to be as quote unquote illegal, right? They are the problem. They are the ones ruining this, that, and the other. And
I'm xenophobic. I'm not racist.
Right. Yeah,
get your ism right. It's just they just happen to be black and brown. But dude, that come on, man.
But what's crazy about this, and this just happened recently, right? The clip that we just played.
Yeah, I think it happened today or yesterday.
What's crazy about that is he literally admits, and I'm very curious. We'll see after today and tomorrow and the next day if this it becomes a story.
Yeah, by the time this episode's out,
he literally claims that it is He's creating the story.
Yeah, this by the time you're hearing this episode, this is a week out.
Right.
Like you were hearing this episode a week later from this clip. So like, let us know. And the dog has an opinion. She doesn't like it. You get sneezies?
Well,
JD Vance
JD
really
Vance apparently
causes allergies.
Is trying to get the story out that you're being eaten.
Tonks, do you think that you are being eaten by immigrants? Questions? No? Your mother is an immigrant. Is she trying to eat you? She does give you lots of kisses. But see, come on, jokes aside, this is fucking stupid, right?
It's insane. And it's a really sad...
It's not happening, as we all know.
Springfield, Ohio, and it's Aurora, Colorado, too, that Trump... There's a story out of Aurora, Colorado. God, it's so hard to say that.
Aurora, Colorado,
Aurora, Colorado. There's another story out of that town that Trump has been pushing as well. So the two of them have... they are just, like you said, capitalizing on using the story when convenient and creating stories and false narratives where there are none to help their own agenda of fear-mongering and vote for Republicans because your country is getting invaded, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, now we're getting ahead of ourselves because we're talking about current policy. So let's get back to...
We're not necessarily, because we're talking specifically about making these stories up because they are utilizing these stories about race to, fearmonger people. Like saying that, one of the quotes from, I just saw on JD's Twitter account, that Kamala Harris dropped 20,000 migrants into Springfield, Ohio for cheap labor, and to call someone like that a liberal is ridiculous. They're a neo-Nazi or something to that effect in the tweet.
So ridiculous.
Like that's just not okay. There's
it's crazy
such a
how they're
thing,
using these neo-Nazi Marxists. Trying to.
God, the fact they don't. None of y'all know what a Marxist is. I mean, the people listening do, but none. JD Vance is either JD knows what a Marxist is and just doesn't care to use the word correctly, or
I don't think he cares. I mean,
that's what I think it's true. Like
neo-Nazi also doesn't apply, and
it doesn't apply. No,
we're
exactly.
Using these terms just for fear-mongering.
Fear-mongering, and he needs to not be like this way.
I think that is what we fully are kind of coming back to, right? Which is the fact that his policies and views and values and morals seem to have changed.
Exactly.
Just to be an opportunist so that he can get political power, regardless of the effect it has on real people. And that's it. That's what it seems to be.
Like when it comes to the racism stuff, like about him flip-flopping on that, he used to think he used to call Trump the next Hitler. He said
that is like, how do you flip-flop that hard on someone like Trump?
And
he is who he is.
He is who he is, but and JD Vance still was attracted to some of that because there was also a point where he said there is definitely an element of Donald Trump's support that has its basis in racism, and that if he had, maybe these are two separate quotes, but if it wasn't for all the racism, he would be a Trump supporter. So he had already said Trump's supporters are rooted in racism. And
Sophia mentions the same thing is that, she says Vance used to condemn Trump's racism and be empathetic to how such rhetoric made Americans feel unwelcome in their own country. So there was an element to Vance that seems to be completely gone.
Yeah, here's the exact quote. It's, if he would just tone down the racism, I would literally be his biggest supporter. I'm obviously outraged at Trump's rhetoric, and I worry most of all about how welcome Muslim citizens feel in their own country, which he hasn't demonized Muslims himself yet, but it's just around the corner where the way things are going, and still to just keep doubling down on his talk of just demonizing these poor Haitian people, of taking one Facebook post that has now since been deleted by the original poster, by the way. So that's already gone. And to just being layering on into this and willing to just co-opt this racist bullshit.
And I think from what I'm understanding in this position that Sophia is taking, it seems to me as though JD Vance is getting on the Trump train because, not because he agrees with Trump.
It's going to lead to power.
Because it's going to lead to power and potentially lead him to
be
the next president. And then he will be able to go full on this post, liberal right crap that he wants, with no separation of church and state, and, banning divorce, because he already mentioned something like that, requiring people to have children, literally a Handmaid's Tale type future.
Yeah. And he's very young. He's a year older than me, like 38 or something like that.
He's in his 30s.
And he also said that, this is another letter to Sophia, that how he hates the fucking police. And I think that was the exact quote about, and how hard it must be for a black person, like when they fear, like it was after an interaction he had with a cop, I believe, and how scared a black person must be when they're also having to interact with these people who are, systematically racist at their core.
What's interesting?
It's now, completely different thing on this.
You know how Trump has been saying that he doesn't know Project 2025? He's not involved.
Sure.
What's interesting?
That old song and dance. That's. But
what's interesting is Trump is so all over the place with his positions. Uh-huh. And he has said that he would not sign a national abortion ban.
Yeah, he keeps saying that a lot, to the point where I'm actually kind of believing it.
No, I actually do believe him. Yeah. But you know who says that they would sign a national abortion ban is JD Vance.
Yeah.
And some of the more religious aspects of Project 2025, I am almost, 100% sure now, knowing what I know, that JD Vance would have no problem running full speed with most of those things. Whereas I can see how Trump might be like, wait, I don't know that I 100% want to do all of this stuff. But
because he keeps talking about how abortion will lose him this election.
Right.
Yeah. He just like, this is going to, if anything loses me in this election, it's going to be abortion, is more or less what Trump said to all these people.
But also think about his last 4 years, right? There were like these little glimmers of things he did where it was like, oh, that's interesting. Like that's not quite a fully Republican position.
Yeah.
Or a totally conservative position.
Basically a UBI for COVID people.
He's kind of, he's Trump.
He wants to win. And I guess that gets us down into the crux of this whole thing of a moral compass.
Right. And
right?
I don't think either of them have any morality. I think Trump his
morality is he wants to win himself. His
Trump's
morality is himself. And I think he actually, that is at least something, and I don't think JD Vance has it.
Trump's guiding principle is himself.
And
whatever is going to make him win, make his ego look good, make him whatever, which is why he is insanely insisting that he won the debate and blah, blah, blah. It's
and the election still within that same
now
debate.
He just sounds like an old man who's unhinged from reality.
They're doing transgenders on the aliens in prison.
Oh my God, psychotic. A total psycho is what he is. But what's scary, I think, about JD Vance, and I'm having this realization, I feel like you've told me this, but I'm just now having this realization that I think JD Vance is the one to actually be scared of.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Because in 4 years, Trump's going to be 82. He's going to, let's say Trump wins, right? In 4 years, he's going to be 82. Like, he's not going to be able to run again. They're going to need someone to step up. JD Vance will be there as vice president, perfectly ready to truly take the extreme parts of Project 2025.
Yeah. So like let me fearmonger you for just half a second with.
I'm already scared.
Yeah. You're already scared that like just, gaming this out, right? Trump and JD win. Sorry, it may happen. It literally could happen because as of today, he was just also shot at or in the vicinity of, but the man was apparently, according to the Secret Service, trying to get to Trump. So there's been another shooting attempt. You already know that because it's been a week. How was the news this past week, everybody? Probably horrible. But they get into the office. One of a few things can happen. Trump can, be getting so crazy and senile. JD can go, you know what? 25th Amendment, where they remove Donald Trump. And like they can already maybe even want to do that so they can have a nice reset. They had their megalomaniac get them into office, and now they have JD there. Maybe or maybe not. He's able to get a bunch of stuff in before the whole, this is a lame duck president, he's unelected, blah, blah, blah. And then they never do that. I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think Trump will do a halfway decent chill job where then JD, hold on, hear me out, where he doesn't sign that abortion ban, right? To where Republicans can build confidence in themselves, where like, okay, the liberals overreacted, blah, 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 and then JD maybe could win again. The third option is that Trump gets impeached because we flip the House towards the Democrats and they go ahead and let him get impeached. And then we have JD Vance. That's my most likely scenario. Like one, if I'm a betting man, which you won't let me in the totally legal betting markets in Scotland, from what I understand. Oh my God, we gotta be rich.
You know what's interesting? I am now fully terrified because
you should be. This is a scary situation that could happen.
No, and it is, and I think what's interesting is you look at Vance, who called Trump whatever he is, and
he called him a new Hitler. He could be a new Hitler, a racist, a disaster, and he's just a bad man. That's another thing that he said.
And yet today is someone who is running on his ticket, but has very different views from him.
Yeah.
When you think about it, he is somebody who doesn't support divorce. No, Trump is divorced, 3 times?
JD Vance is hardcore Christian family values. Right. Trump is the literal opposite. Trump may be actively having an affair with Laura Loomis or Loomer, whatever, how you pronounce her name. And I know that's just a rumor right now.
Now we are, let us not perpetuate.
She is staying at Mar-a-Lago. Well, Melania is staying in New York.
Okay, but we are not perpetuating.
Hands around it. I'm just saying, if the internet says it's true, just like JD fucking a couch, it's true. No, I'm kidding.
Just like immigrants eating dogs, we are not perpetuating.
We're not going to perpetuate, but unlike those immigrants not eating dogs, Laura Loomis is staying at Mar-a-Lago right now.
Loomer,
whatever.
Also, she's like a 9/11 and a proud
9/11 truther who was invited to the 9/11 memorial recently
by Trump.
What the fuck?
And I'm listening on NPR the other day. She describes herself as a proud Islamophobe.
Wow.
Which is insane.
Proud Islamophobe. That's wow. Okay, that's more racist than JD Vance.
Insanity. So, but what Sophia in this, just to finish this opinion article that she wrote, what she says is, instead of persuading Americans to support their ideas, leaders of the post-liberal right are covertly positioning themselves within MAGA to be the heirs of Trump's political base when he's off the scene.
Yeah.
They seek to transform the GOP into a pro-theocracy party willing to ignore the Constitution and democratic norms.
Yeah.
So it really is this setup. And when you look at this in totality, like, I'm not sure. I think the only thing that's not answered, because we have this story, right, of him 2015, 2016, and then you have the baptism in 2019 running for Senate, supporting this bill in Arizona that, prohibits gender-affirming care. And then you have him now running with JD Vance and being anti-divorce.
Also
and
flip-flopping on oil, payday loans literally mid-book.
So many things. So we don't know what happened between 2016 and 2019. The only thing we know is he moved to Ohio in 2017.
And met some hardcore crazy Catholics, it sounds like.
Right. He moved to Ohio in 2017. He became a venture capitalist. He, and clearly decided along the way, some why, to become a Catholic, and here we are.
And which brings me to what I was talking about at the beginning, is it's not that you can't change yourself.
Right.
I am worried that we are at a point that we have two different, and from the sounds of it, I'm right now, is that we have two different sets of moralities. Because his, I thought was just maybe, I thought at the beginning of this episode that he didn't have any, and it was just whatever it went to the highest bidder. But it clearly is that he got baptized in this radical neo-right Catholic sect, or post-liberal, sorry.
Whatever, yeah.
But it's seriously hyper-conservative right-wing sect of the Catholic Church. And that's what is his influence into doing all this. So I think I am right that the two sides of us here, my morality led me to go, you know what? Love is love is love is love, or whatever.
Yeah.
And let's be accepting and, make sure everybody's taken care of. His is stay in a fucking abusive marriage because it's better for your kids, despite my past. Don't look at my past, even though I wrote a whole book about it.
But what's interesting on that note? I think I have two thoughts. The first one is this reminds me again of The Handmaid's Tale and what's his name's character who got Bradley Whitford's character who got into it with the intention of just taking care of the climate crisis and
but he underestimated the religious crazies.
Yes, and
that spoiler alert, Bradley Whitford isn't a crazy
The show
Christian
has been
person.
out for
that's fine.
years,
Yeah,
so
that's fine.
If you haven't watched it by now. But it's giving me that parallel, right, of let me just hitch my wagon because I agree with some things, but I'm not 100% in line, and then oops, this is what happens.
Yeah.
But what's interesting to the note that you just said, there's actually a 538 episode that I heard that I would recommend. It's from early August, and it's about these researchers pollsters who did some polling on morale, and it came down to the question of morality.
Okay.
Because they went into it with talking to both sides, right? People who identify as Republican or Democrat. And basically, we are so fundamentally different at this point that we no longer respect each other because we see each other's views as amoral to each other. So, for example,
which is I fall into that,
right?
100%,
and that's how
like,
I am too. So, for example, Democrats more so are about the community, about helping your neighbor, about being more...
we should say people who support the democratic liberal leftist policies, those kinds of things. Not necessarily,
Right. Generally, their definition of morality is that we have an obligation to care for others. And those who do not see it that way, that is a morality issue for them. And I think that is true for you and me because... on the right, they see morality more as take care of your own and yourself.
Yes.
Take care of this country that is
me
ours.
And mine. Just my land. Like everybody else is, they can do whatever they want. Like,
and again, freedom. For them, the opposite they see as immoral. They see, why would you go and help someone else when I have problems here? Why would you?
Well, I have to ask that. Do you need help? Because fun fact, we want to help you. Like what? Like Jesus. Like what are we doing here, guys? Yeah. Come on. Like,
so I think
I need help. Aren't you helping me? We're trying. Like,
and Trump brought that out more so. Maybe it was something that was kind of bubbling for a while, but I know that for me at least, it definitely came up more so with Trump and this idea of, so you are willing to. Because the people who are true diehard MAGA people are not that many people overall, but a lot of people vote Republican because of taxes, right? Yeah. And so that 2016 was the first year that I was like, so you would you are okay voting for someone who is racist, who is accused of sexual assault, right? Like all these things because you want lower taxes.
Like what amounts maybe $300 to $400 on your paycheck if you're very wealthy.
That is something that I have a hard time wrapping my head around. And to me, that is immoral. Yeah. And so I think to your point, we are at a point where if I don't want to compromise on my values and morality, you don't want to compromise on yours. If you're, a MAGA person. And so we are at an impasse.
Yeah, I think we are now for a very long time until one side wins out or, education becomes more prevalent or, maybe it's just a process of just getting past these 2 or 3 decades of that's just how it was when we moved past the 60s and 70s. Like things have progress takes slow in time, but I am scared we're at some sort of social stalemate. Like that it might not be fixing this. I don't like leaving. We just had the conversation earlier. Like, I don't like leaving things without hope, but I don't know at this point, Lee, because I have hope that we will progress and things can get better. And, this too shall pass. Even if Trump did win, I don't think it would last a long time. I don't think a right-wing government would last that long because it's put up or shut up, right? And they haven't ever put up. Trump keeps talking about having a healthcare plan. I just saw a breakdown of all the dates that he said, in the next few days, we're going to release our plan, blah, blah. Like there's like 10, 20 different times.
Concepts of a plan.
Yeah, concepts of a plan. Like, so like, when presented, it's the dog that catches the car. They don't know what to do. So that's when it falls apart. That's why Trump lost. That's why Bush only stayed in office for as long as he did because there was a war going on, guys. Like Reagan did the same thing because there was a really great first 4 years and then there was a really bad other 4 years. And then Bush said he wouldn't raise taxes and then raise taxes. Blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to get into political history with you guys. Sorry, but I guess I just did. But still, my point is like this too shall pass.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we still have to live with each other, right? Like these, these feelings are still going to be there at the end of the day. After Germany lost their war, then those people that still supported Hitler still were there.
And here's the thing, right? And I think people talk about wanting to go back to a time when we could talk to each other.
Sure.
And I can understand that. For example,
I do too, man.
Like what is happening in Springfield, Ohio, right? The issue with a small town taking on a large number of immigrants. Yeah. That's difficult.
Sure.
That is a very complicated issue. It's very nuanced, and it needs to be talked about with the delicacy and the respect.
Not that they were just dropped there by Kamala Harris. They moved there slowly. Over a course of time, they weren't all bussed in like they're making it out to seem. Like that's not how this works, guys.
Well, they were there. A large number came within 4 to 5 years. Which think about it, a small town.
I get that.
A small town with small infrastructure taking on up to 20,000 additional people who don't speak the language fluently.
Yeah, that
is complicated.
Yeah.
But I think what we need to do is we need to talk about the issue, and try to resolve it by integrating these people and finding a way to make it work, and not just fear-mongering and talking about how they're eating dogs.
Yeah,
because
to the point where bomb threats get called in to multiple places, right? I think at least City Hall had a bomb threat called into it.
That's the issue, right? I think if someone who supports Trump listens to this, they're going to say, oh, so what? You just want people to be able to come in and go anywhere and do whatever? It's like, well, no, I understand that there has to be some kind of process and infrastructure to be able to support people who are coming in, right? The impact that many people in the town had on rent prices, things like that.
Sure.
Like, yes, these are valid issues that need to be talked about. But you have Trump just screaming about how they're eating the dogs. That's not helpful. No. And that's not having an intelligent conversation about resolving the issue.
Well, no, all you have to do is make up a story about it so that you can draw attention to that issue. That's how you do it, right?
Okay, JD Vance.
Yeah. That was their solution. That's JD's solution. That's his weird fucking solution. Like, fuck you, dude. Like, God almighty, it's not that hard to be good. I feel like it has to take extra, like, it has to be harder to be a bad person. I'm not sure, maybe that's a naive thing to think of, but like to just be actively, latching onto this shit, just because it is his home state, but to just keep latching onto this fear-mongering just in order to get power, I mean, I wouldn't call that weird. I would call that, American, really, or just human, I guess, at the end of the day. But a shitty human, and that's, in my opinion, and I'm going to assume your opinion, JD Vance. So anything else from you on this? That's all I've got on this fucking weirdo, because I'd really like to get to his memes and all of the funny stuff instead of the terrible stuff. Because in the last episode's sad, so we're doing a fun, a sad, a fun, and then a watch out. Go register to vote at vote.org. I was supposed to say that at the beginning.
Yeah, vote.org, vote.gov. Both of them get you where you need to go, and that is the hope. The hope. Yeah. Although the more I think, the less hopeful I am. But
Lord. Pessimistically optimistic, as we like to say.
Pessimistically pessimistic at this point because of the Electoral College. But if we can, and I do think Kamala Harris is doing a good job right now. She is trying to campaign in areas that Democrats haven't visited in a while. She's trying to get her message out. She's trying to be known. Yeah. So, all we can do is vote and hope turnout is high. We've got Taylor Swift endorsing.
Caitlin Clark, too, just liked Taylor's post and endorsed Kate.
Love it. And, they're encouraging people. Freaking Stormy Daniels is going around the country trying to
doing stand-up
and trying to register people to vote.
Dude, okay, if there's anyone out there who goes to see Stormy Daniels stand up, please let us know how it was. I'm a comedy writer. I would love love to know how that's going. And we should see if she's coming here. Yeah, that would be amazing.
That would be. So, we've got people out there trying to register people to vote. Then we've got people like Ken Paxton and a bunch of other state attorneys general trying to kick people off of the voting rolls and prevent people from being able to get mail-in ballots and all the other stuff that Republicans are doing.
Ron DeSantis just sent and questioned people who signed the abortion petition
to get the proposal
so voter intimidation for everybody.
Is at an all-time high. I mean, right now there are multiple states where Republicans are trying to get the proposals that are already on the ballot. They're still trying to get them off.
Yeah.
I think Florida is one of those states where they're trying to prove that it was done
legally, which it was. They're not going to find that it's not, and I would say definitely worry about that. But I think they're going to stay on there. Like you're really going to have to try.
This is one of those things where hopefully democracy will prevail. You have to be concerned though if the Supreme Court of those states and if they've got everybody in line to support removing these things, you got to be concerned.
Yeah. But we'll see.
I don't know.
We'll see.
Anyway, okay, we're back to being not hopeful.
We're not back to being not hopeful, but what will maybe be hopeful is what I think could win the election is, I hate to be one of those people, but the vibes might actually win us here and there, or maybe not, probably not. The Electoral College really might fuck us. But the vibes of JD Vance are bad. Oof. Guys, they're bad. I mean, we know the couch fucking joke, and she didn't do, but it's the fact that we can see the fact that he would do it, right? And it's come on. But that's the tip of the iceberg of his memes, and I wanted to include a meme episode on him, much like we did the grab bag with Santos, because there was just so much there that almost immediately, and we'll talk about this out when we get to the next episode, but he lost approval rating points as a VP.
Please,
and that historically does not happen. So we'll talk about it next week. Thanks for joining us. Subscribe wherever you get your podcast or on the America the Podcast page on YouTube, and let everyone know. And cute news, cute.news. It's fun. First episode's out of that, and it's cute. Go figure out what that is, because you're going to love it or hate it. It's an
Nah, you're going to love it.
If you're a weeb, and if you know what that word means, congratulations. If you're an anime nerd, you'll love it. For some reason, anime nerds love it. So thanks, anime nerds, for making cute news happen. And thank you all for listening. Have a good night. Listening to I Do Not Trust This Person, Season 3, The Ballad of JD Vance the Weird. The show is hosted and produced by Alanah and Tim Philippi. For a full list of news sources and music used in this episode, please refer to the show notes. This episode was mixed and edited by Tim Philippi at Shway Media Studios in Austin, Texas. The show's executive producer is Alanah Philippi. I Do Not Trust This Person was created by Tim Philippi and is a production of Shway Media and America the Podcast Presents. For more information, please visit shwaymedia.com or americathepodcast.com. Copyright 2024, all rights reserved.
This has been a production of Shway Media, all rights reserved. For more information, please visit shwaymedia.com.